In Connecticut, many are wondering if their workplace or school may require it. Here to discuss more on that is attorney Mark Sommaruga from Pullman and Comley, who is an expert in both education and employment law. We so appreciate your being with us as we head into the new year.
Thank you for having me today, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. Let's jump right in if we can. And kind of the big question we have is, could the COVID-19 vaccine be required in Connecticut schools?
The short answer is yes, with maybe some exceptions. Clearly, there's court cases indicating that the schools would have the authority to mandate it. The question might be is whether they have to permit an exception for those who may have a sincerely held religious belief that prohibits them from being vaccinated, or obviously for those who have a disability where the vaccine might cause them some harm.
And just to be super clear with our audience at home, are you talking about students and staff, just students, just staff? What do you think that picture is?
Yes, actually, it's not too dissimilar. The same issues might happen with staff, where you could have a general mandate, as any employer could mandate the vaccine, but you may have to permit an exception, again, for those who may have a sincerely held religious belief that prohibits them from being vaccinated, and those who have a disability that might prevent them from being vaccinated.
So we talked a little bit about schools. Let's talk about businesses. So many folks working remotely right now. I think some would like to return back to some kind of traditional setting at some point. Could Connecticut employers, do you think, require the vaccine as well?
Largely the same answer. Again, and it depends largely on the type of employer, what type of exception. For example, a hospital, a healthcare provider, you could see where you would want to mandate that the vaccine, for example, the emergency room doctor be vaccinated. Other places, you could choose to have a mandate. However, you're going to have to, again, permit exceptions for those who may have a religious belief. And again, you may have to accommodate those who may have a disability.
And Mark, there are a few topics that I've covered professionally that get folks as fired up as vaccines. Some very much support them. We know that there are some who don't. How quickly do you think we could see this end up in some kind of courtroom scenario? Is it happening now? Could it be pretty soon?
It probably could be. I mean, right now there is still litigation about the mask mandate, which was very controversial in some quarters. Same thing could happen with the vaccine. The question will be now, will the legislature or Connecticut General Assembly think about passing a mandate for the schools? You saw what happened last year when they tried to, make changes in the exception for the immunization requirement that exists for polio and measles. It's a very controversial issue. The legislature, if they were to mandate it, I assume someone would bring a lawsuit.
Attorney Mark Sommaruga, we so appreciate your time. Again, want to wish you a happy and healthy new year. Please come on back in 2021.